German Chancellor Angela Merkel is in China to renew ties with one of the EU's most important trading partners. Still with me is Michael Schaefer in Berlin. He is the former German ambassador to China and current chair of the board of the BMW Foundation. Cui Hongjian is Senior Research Fellow and Director of the Department for European Studies at the China Institute of International Studies. And for this part of the show from Bonn, we are joined by Josef Janning, who is head of the European Council on Foreign Relations Berlin office. Thanks again to all of you for being with us. Josef, let me start with you this time. How do you see this relationship between Germany and China evolve economically, and in which sectors is Germany most invested in China, and do we see that changing?
Well, China is, of course, very important for Germany as an industrial export nation. And I think that only also alludes to the other question that you had. I think it is manufacturing technology that is the key industry that connects Germany and China, as China is entering a stage of qualitative growth, which will be knowledge-driven, technology-driven, quality-driven. And in that sense, Germany becomes more important even, and there's more opportunity for German manufacturing to do business with China. On the face of things, it is, of course, the car industry. I think it's about a third of German exports to China is automobiles. So to many people, this is the backbone of the economic relationship. But I say it's the technology one. It's the former. It's the machine industry.
And Josef, as I've just been discussing with Ambassador Schaefer, there have been problems in China recently. There's been a revision of the growth forecast downwards. There have also been market turbulence. In fact, the head of Germany's Export Industry Association, Anton Berner, says this visit, given those problems that China has experienced, is about confidence building. Is that a fair comment?
Yes, I think so. It is about confidence building. I think it is not easy to see from the outside how the Chinese leadership will do this transformation of economic development. I think a lot of people understand that the next challenge is more openness, is more competition also domestically on the Chinese market. But just how to do it in the kind of political and economic environment that China lives in is an open question. I think there is no other country that is making similar experiences or that is facing a similar difficulty of scale and dimension that China deals with. So I think this is the critical thing. In times like this, strong or continuous political relations alongside the business relationship is very important.
Ambassador, as Josef just pointed out, 1/3 of Germany's car exports go to China. And of course, Chancellor Merkel is being accompanied by a number of executives on this visit, among them some automobile industry executives as well. Is Germany, as some analysts have pointed out, too exposed in this particular sector to China?
Well, that is a question which every company will have to see. They're all trying to diversify. But if you look at the markets, it's Europe, it's the US, and it's China. All other markets are comparatively smaller. So eventually, you're going to concentrate on these three. In China, you already have a change of, let me say, a business presence by most of our car companies. We are not exporting cars to China in the first place. We are manufacturing cars in China for the Chinese market. And that draws a lot of companies who are distributing parts for these manufacturing processes. And that, of course, builds an enormous amount of, so to say, body of German industry present in China and producing in the Chinese market.
Hongjian, we've been talking a lot about technology cooperation between these two countries. The Chinese Premier Li Keqiang said China needs to adopt advanced technology and concepts from Germany. What kind of expansion can we see in the technology sector?
Yeah, exactly. As we understand, maybe one of the importance, of Germany to China is as we know, Germany is the main resources of the technology sharing with China in Europe. So I think that that's the reason why now we do have this partnership of innovation. Because that, as we understand now, the new situation is China and Germany, more and more, they belong to the same value chain in the manufacturing sector. So we need to understand how could it is important that technology, I mean, especially how could China and Germany, we can make some joint effort to get some, R&D in the future, and also not only R&D, and maybe from education, R&D, and producing the products. And I mean, every chance of this the process of manufacturing become more and more important. So I think indeed the technology and especially there's some joint research and a joint effort will become more and more important in the cooperation between China and Germany.
Josef, how important is it for Germany, and of course for China as well, that Germany was a founding member of the Chinese-led AIIB, the Asia Infrastructure and Investment Bank?
Well, it's sort of important because it's a signal. It's a signal to China that the Europeans are actually ready to accept the move that China made there, which was a bit controversial on the international scene, but they see it rather as an opportunity than as a challenge. They see that there's more to it to have China engage in investing into major development projects in the region. And of course, they want to be part of it when this becomes a major economic activity.
Ambassador Schaefer, you mentioned at the outset of the show there that there will be some opportunity for the two leaders, Chancellor Merkel as well as Premier Li Keqiang, to talk about foreign policy, to talk about security policy and where they can help each other. Where do you see the potential for that?
Well, one regional conflict obviously is the Middle East, and in particular Syria. We have this very important meeting of foreign ministers in Vienna today, which includes not only the permanent members of the Security Council, but also Iran, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia. I think we are building on this very positive experience of the Iran nuclear negotiations, which we started 10 years ago, and which has come to a sort of successful result this summer. I think it is important for China and for the other parties to understand that this is not a merely regional conflict, but that we all need to work together in order to try to stabilize a region which is highly dangerous for the stability way beyond the Middle East, not only for Europe, but also for Central Asia and other parts.
Hongjian, how does China use its influence to change the outcomes of what we're seeing happening in the Middle East right now? It does have some influence with Russia, and we know that Russia supports Bashar al-Assad in Syria. What kind of contribution does it make there?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think Chancellor Merkel and her counterpart in China, they touched this issue seriously. I think indeed that I think China should do something more. I mean, play a more active role in this issue, because China not only the a permanent member of Security Council in United Nations, and also China, as we know, it has some interest in Middle East, especially how about the energy security issue and so on. And so I think that China firstly need to do something more in the framework of United Nations. For example, provide some more support to the efforts of European countries or some other regional countries want to resolve this situation. And also at the same time, China will provide some more humanitarian aid or assistance to European countries and also Middle Eastern countries to help them to settle those refugees and so on. But of course, at the same time, I think that China, Europe, and even United States and Russia, I think it's a good time for all of these players to sit down and to have a open discussion on how could we do something more to fight against the terrorism. So because everybody thinks that, okay, it's a big problem, but now the problem is few people or few countries, they want to contribute more to the international community. So I think now it's time. I mean, ISIS or some other terrorist force, those big players in international affairs, we have to consolidate for this threat from terrorism.
Josef, Chancellor Merkel has faced some criticism back in Germany for making the visit at this time, at a time when Germany is facing a crisis on the migrant situation, on the refugee crisis in that country. Was this the right time for her to visit China? I mean, did she really have a choice? Is this criticism justified in any way?
I don't think so, Anand. I think one of the merits of regular communications between governments and one of the merits of pursuing kind of a consultation process that has its own sequence is that you actually you stay in touch regardless of what the day-to-day agenda domestically may be. So I think this is very helpful. It's very helpful for countries such as Germany and China to be in touch on current affairs. And I think there are quite some experiences that Germany may be able to communicate to China and some European interests also regarding the development in East and Southeast Asia, because we see ourselves compared a lot to Japan, particularly in the Chinese debate also. And for good reasons, I believe. But I think that may also be an opportunity to take in some of the other experiences Germany has gained, that, for example, when there are conflicts over interests or over resources or over territory, the German experience of the past century is we better sit down and talk about it because that's the best way forward. I think it is a very genuine experience that Germans have gained very painfully, and this is something we would like to share also with other countries.
Ambassador Schaefer, before we go, I have to ask you this. It's the one big success Chancellor Merkel has already seen in China, and that she's engaged in some panda diplomacy. Berlin Zoo would be very lucky right now. They're getting 2 pandas from China.
I think the Berliners will be jubilant in receiving these pandas. We have had pandas for a long time, but the last couple of years there was no panda in our zoo. I think this is a fantastic way of panda diplomacy, and it shows that the Chinese understand also the emotional part of this very important relationship between the Middle Kingdom and Germany.
Ambassador Michael Schaefer, Cui Hongjian, and Josef Janning, thanks to all of you for joining us.